In the post-World War II era, most wars end not with outright victory, but with a negotiated settlement. And wars far apart in time and place, like Vietnam, the Balkans, and Sudan, talking replaced the shooting. In some cases, the talks led to an eventual permanent resolution and stability. In others, they merely bought time for one side to extricate itself from the conflict. Now, as U.S. troops begin their gradual withdrawal from Afghanistan, the first tentative moves are being made toward political negotiations between the government of Afghan President Hamid Karzai and some as yet unspecified segments of the Taliban movement. The talks have the backing of President Obama, who said in June that Afghanistan cannot have peace without a political settlement.
As we strengthen the Afghan government and security forces, America will join initiatives that reconcile the Afghan people, including the Taliban. Our position on these talks is clear. They must be led by the Afghan government, and those who want to be a part of a peaceful Afghanistan must break from al-Qaeda, abandon violence, and abide by the Afghan Constitution.
Andrew Wilder, a South Asia analyst with the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, is hopeful, but says the prospects for a tidy outcome of talks are not too encouraging.
I think there's a lot of hurdles, there's a lot of complications, as I don't think it's going to necessarily end in a nice, neat, grand bargain. But I think if we start pursuing different opportunities as they present themselves, some might materialize, some won't. But bit by bit, if we can get agreements with some of the groups within the Taliban and create some momentum, I think I still hold out hope for a negotiated settlement.
The U.S. strategy is to train Afghan army and police to the point that they can take over security duties, allowing U.S. forces to pull out by 2014. At the same time as the drawdown, remaining U.S. forces will bring military pressure to bear on the Taliban to bring them to the negotiating table. Most analysts believe the Afghan army is progressing slowly but steadily, but that, as Andrew Wilder points out, the police lag far behind.
Despite the billions of dollars invested now in improving the quality and quantity, the police are still in many areas viewed to be a big part of the security problem rather than the solution, and to be a very predatory force and a force that's actually undermining the popularity of the government rather than improving security for citizens.
And it is not clear who among the various Taliban factions would be willing to make a deal or what they would demand. Former Afghan ambassador to the United States, Saeed Tayyib Jawad, says the Taliban may not feel under pressure to make a deal.
Although the Taliban are more and more under pressure, especially the South, but they have more freedom of movement in other parts of the country. They're not perceived to be losing the war completely. And if they're not losing, they're not going to be compelled to talk, because the definition of the victory for Taliban is very different from the definition of victory for the United States or the Afghan people.
The Taliban have claimed responsibility for several recent high-profile assassinations, including those of the half-brother of President Karzai and the mayor of Kandahar. But after the killing of the Kandahar mayor, U.S. Ambassador to Afghanistan Ryan Crocker said the assassinations are a sign of Taliban weakness, not strength.
I would judge that the Taliban is now damaged to the point where they can no longer conduct large-scale operations. They've had to kind of regroup and figure out what they can do. And in some cases, that has been assassination. Again, we saw a very similar pattern in Iraq. Clearly, these are horrific attacks, but they can also be interpreted as a sign of significant organizational weakness on the part of the adversary.
Analysts say the Taliban will seek to exploit any perceived weakness in the Afghan government, including corruption, which was highlighted in the latest scandal to hit the country's top financial institution, the Kabul Bank. Gary Thomas, VOA News, Washington.